What's going on, guys? Jeremy with A to Z Shooting, and today I want to introduce my inaugural episode of Scouring Soldier Systems for things that I want or don't want. I know, it's a work in progress as far as the title, but I hope it gets straight to the point for you. So today I spent a whole bunch of time scouring Soldier Systems. If you're not familiar with Soldier Systems, it is the premier tactical blog on the internet. If you're looking for all of the latest and greatest of military technology and gun industry news, Soldier Systems is the place to go. Hence why I scoured it and found a bunch of things that I did or didn't want. So let's not waste any more time. Let's not delay this any further. Let's dive on in. Soldier Systems broke the news that Sig Sauer just recently started selling the same exact pistol variant that was chosen by the Australian Defence Force. This happened in 2022 during their lethality system project, aka buying new toys. But some things that stood out on this gun, besides the Romeo 2 optic on top, was the Fox Trot 2R weapon light down below. In all of these photos, you'll notice that Sig is shipping this gun to the Australian Defence Force with one of their Sig branded lights. So I did a little bit of research and I found that they're actually pretty inexpensive. You know, one of those things that we've come to realize today in the gear world is that all of our gear is judged based on who uses it and how many people they've killed with it. And based on that, we know that Australia is definitely a front runner. If the Sig Fox Trot 2R is good enough for them, I can assure you it's more than likely good enough for you and I. So with that said, coming in at 700 lumens, 20,000 candela, and up to 1.5 hours of constant runtime, and is considered dual fuel, meaning it'll either take a 16340 rechargeable battery or a CR123 alpha battery, depending on what you have on hand or what you like to use. With an MSRP of $149, but can definitely be found for cheaper than that, this is a definite want for me. I would love to try this out. You know, there's a lot of good options on the market today for pistol lights, so I'd love to see if Sig has done a good job with their offering. I've used a couple of their optics, and while not all of them have been hitters, some of them have been, you know, on the neater, nicer side, so I'm willing to give them a chance. This is definitely a want. I would like one of these, at least to try out. Up next is the Bowtac Battle Steel ARM, or Accuracy Recoil Management Grip Extension for Glock handguns. Try saying that 5 times fast. This one, I admit, I am definitely on the fence about. On one hand, I appreciate any sort of innovation in the industry, especially when it comes to platforms that people, you know, typically already have on hand. The Glock is obviously a popular handgun. Everyone's got one. This would be a neat little accessory, potentially. So this is the stock version. There is a brace version. I will say I give it props for the ease of installation. It's just a removal of a roll pin and an installation of a roll pin. I will say one thing that I admire about it is that it is less offensive looking than a Roni or maybe the Revision Tactical Stabilizer Kit, but it still lacks the cutesiness and demureness of the B&T USW or the Holy Grail GOAT, the Flux Raider, which of course all of these handgun PDW platforms are striving to be. So in their example here, you can see that there's actually a Picatinny rail more rearward. And the reason behind this is actually something that they state in the product description here, and that's that this is more intended for a magnifier than it is a non-reciprocating red dot platform, such as like the USW or the Flux Raider. More intended for you to take magnified pistol shots with your braced PDW here. You know, again, on one hand, I admire the innovation. I mean, that's... I take it back. It's definitely just as ugly as a Roni or a Revision Tactical Kit. Oh, my eyes. Good Lord, look at that thing. And of course, you know, we're trying to justify this here. You know, if you obviously... it's not saving much more space than a standard PDW is. I guess, you know, the one saving grace of this would be that it's cheaper than purchasing a new PDW because you've already got a Glock, so you might as well. But I'm going to challenge you on that because it's actually not. It's actually not cheaper. So it's MSRP of $349. That is absolutely out of control for what is essentially a brace arm that attaches to a Glock with a roll pin. So I'll say this, if I was given one, would I put a magnifier on it and try and take a bunch of 100-yard shots with it? Absolutely. But this is not something that I would spend my hard-earned money on, and it's not something that I can recommend that you spend your hard money on. when there are so many better options out there. All right, so this is a pass. This is a no-go. Oakley dokley. Up next is up next, I will say, back on the list, because I did actually make an older video in which I did talk about the First Spear wind cheater. This, however, is a updated new variant and a new pattern that they're offering. Of course, that is Desert Night Camo. First Spear is a gear manufacturer based out of Missouri. They're fantastic. Fair warning, full up front. I have a First Spear belt and I have a First Spear plate carrier. I use them regularly and I can't speak highly enough about them. If I'm to look at the quality of those items, I can only assume that the wind cheater is of the same standard, meaning it's fantastic, rock solid, couldn't ask for a better piece of equipment. And of course, this one comes in a snazzy hot camo. I will say on their website, they do offer different variations in colors. However, the camouflage patterns like this one do tend to go quick. And once they're gone, they're usually pretty much gone. So this is a want. I would buy this. I do want this. If I were in the market for an ultralight, water resistant wind cheater, this would be the only one that I would be looking at right now. So with that said, man, it's a nice piece of gear. Okay. All right. Let's keep this moving right now, all right? Because, at an MSRP of $210, I don't actually think that's too bad for a piece of gear like this, especially if you're already in the gear community or you're familiar with how gear economy works. $210 for a waterproof, wind-resistant shell really isn't terrible. So if you're in the market, I would say take a stab. These are great pieces of gear, and then one in this pattern definitely won't last long. That's a go. That's a hard green light for me. Okay, so we have a very niche piece of gear here. This is the Whiskey 24 Backpack 58. This is a backpack version of a plate carrier back panel that accepts all sorts of goodies, but more specifically the ones that you're familiar with, like the Carriage APC and SPC zip style back panel accessories and backpacks. Just looking at this right now, I can see a good use case and a good argument for an ultra light setup if you were to use this in tandem with like a chest rig or a micro rig. And I also appreciate the idea and concept of making your plate carrier kit modular and that you can just kind of pull it off of your plate carrier and slap it on one of these. However, I can also unfortunately imagine a young veteran attending his freshman year on his GI Bill at college and this being his primary backpack. And that level of cringe makes me want to roll myself inside out like a fucking toothpaste tube. Please don't do that. If you're going to college, listen, I'll tell you right now, if you're a young veteran and you're going to college, please don't wear a military backpack. No one cares. Everyone knows your haircut and your fucking boots gave it away the moment you walked in. But listen, that's when you go to college, that's when you need to shed that identity. It's a conversation for another day, though. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Whiskey 24 Backpack 58. So, in terms of concept and idea, I love it. I think it's fantastic. One thing I will say, though, it does look pretty thin. So I can imagine that a heavy load without any sort of shoulder padding would probably make this pretty gnarly to wear for an extended period of time, especially at distance. This one would be a maybe. I'm not rushing out to get it. I don't really have a use case personally for it. But again, if you're in the market for something like this, listen, if you like hiking and you like carrying gear and you don't want to wear a plate carrier, or maybe you're running a class and you still need everything that goes in your little bug out bag, but you don't want to necessarily run plates, this is a great option for you. This is a maybe. This is like a hard, soft maybe. I don't know. I like it, but I'm not like in love with it. Last but certainly not least, I want to talk about the Commando Store Niemöller webbing. What is old is new. What is dead may never die, etc., etc. This right here is a load carriage system based off of one that was in production during the Rhodesian Bush War. This one specifically was created by Johann Niemöller, who is essentially the granddaddy to Haley Strategic, Shaw, Faro, Cry, pretty much everyone. It's an identical reproduction of a rig that was used back then. Now, with that said, it's LARP gear, really. And I mean, who's to say that, there's anything wrong with that? Because there isn't. But it's LARP gear at the end of the day, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's a different LARP than the one I'm LARPing. Okay, so, it gets a reduction of points because of the lack of modularity. And the main reason why I would not recommend this, of course, because if you're familiar with the totally reputable retailer, totally dependable, legitimate storefront known as Commando Store, there's a really good chance you might pay for this and then never fucking see it. or you'll pay for it and the ATF will end up at your door. I don't know. You know, heard some stories, seen some things, read some things. I grow a little weary of doing any sort of serious business with this company. But most importantly, holy moly, $329 for the MSRP there. I'm going to tell you, it's too much. It's too much for what it is. I can't do that. This is a hard no for me. With $329, I would much rather spend that towards more current generation updated modular gear that I can custom do whatever I want with, however, to fit my body mechanics. Cannot do that with this. You know, and not even talking about the sketchiness of the company, but again, it's just the fact that it's this expensive, no modularity, not really like anything that anyone's currently using, and there's a reason for that. You know, it's a hard pass for me. But if that is something that you're into, if this is your LARP, then by all means have at it. But it's a pass for me. So that concludes our first list of items that I found on Soldier Systems while scouring it. I hope to put out a whole bunch more episodes of this. So if you've enjoyed this type of content, please go ahead and hit a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and hopefully I'll be putting more stuff out sooner than later. All right, have a good evening.